We're transmitting live from San Diego, California, from the studios of KPBS on the campus of San Diego State University. Greetings to our participants in Mexico, Panama, Costa Rica, Colombia, Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina, and other countries in Latin America. We would distinguished viewers here in the United States. And we would like to thank once again Telecomunicaciones de Mexico, PanamSat, and BrazilSat for their satellite linkage services, which allow us to reach all of you through the wonders of telecommunications. Welcome to the program Waste Management and the Environment, Innovative Systems for Industrial, Commercial, and Residential Applications, the third video conference in our 1995 Strategic Resource Management series. My name is Dr. Frank Medeiros, and I will be your moderator for this video conference. We would like to remind the coordinators at each receive site to collect the attendance sheets for your site and to return them to the International Training Center as soon as possible. At this time, you should also return to us a list of names of participants interested in obtaining the certificate or diploma for this series of programs. This program is composed of 2 presentation modules and 2 question and answer sessions. We look forward to your live participation. Today's program is important given today's global realities. The most challenging legacy of the explosive growth of human activity and its globalization during the last few decades, fueled by industrialization and modern communications, is without doubt the resulting waste and its contamination of our environment. But over and above our moral and social responsibility to maintain ecological equilibrium and a clean environment for our future generations, something our governments will have to promote more and more, we have recently seen the emergence of a series of new technologies and innovative waste management strategies which now allow us to transform dangerous waste products into tangible resources of great value to agriculture, industry, and commerce, and to our community in general. Already, in many productive sectors, the applications of these new technologies is giving corporations and public agencies the key competitive advantage they need to lead in their regional and global markets, lowering their overall operation costs while complying with new environmental standards such as ISO 14000. Such standards will become increasingly important in the enforcement of environmental regulations worldwide. Furthermore, the fast growth of the new waste management and processing industry represents a unique opportunity for investment, technology transfer, and business in developing countries, where excessive urbanization has generated large concentrations of waste, which can potentially be transformed into important economic and social resources. Our invited experts today will discuss the most common types of waste in agricultural, industrial, commercial, and residential activities, applicable management technologies, the importance of complying to the ISO 14000 standard, and energy audits, both in the public and the private sector, and the moral and ethical dimension which should move us all to make this theme a priority even beyond its commercial and business appeal. The program is designed for non-specialists and will give participants a realistic and objective vision of a topic which in recent years has generated much discussion and controversy in its environmental consequences, but which until now has been forgotten in relation to its strategic potential for productivity and economic development worldwide. It is my pleasure to present to you today's guests and expert speakers, Dr. Rama Chalam and Mr. Richard Opper. Dr. Chalam is a well-known researcher, consultant, and professor on waste management, environmental health, industrial hygiene, sick building syndrome, and international environmental issues. He served as chief toxicologist for one of the worst ecological disasters in recent years, the Exxon Valdez oil spill in Alaska, and has been recognized internationally by various professional organizations for his contributions to protecting the quality of the environment. Professor Chalam has a clinical degree from AP Agri University in India, degrees in postdoctoral degrees from the Iowa State University, and a Ph.D. in pathotoxicology from the University of Illinois. Mr. Opper is a former Attorney General for the territory of Guam, where he represented the Guam EPA. In San Diego, he heads the Environmental Practice Group of McKenna and Cuneo, where he represents private interests and public agencies in complex environmental and natural resource litigation matters. He is a member of various regional and national non-government organizations, or NGOs, and is a recognized expert on informational and technological aspects of environmental pollution issues. Mr. Opper holds a Juris Doctor degree from UCLA and a Master's in Public Administration from Harvard University. Welcome to you both, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we begin, I would like to ask you both the following questions. Why is the topic of waste management of such great importance to administrators in government, business, and education today? And how feasible is it really to convert waste from a liability to an asset in our organizations?
Well, we're always more sensitive to the impacts that waste has on the environment, and it's government's function to visit those impacts back on the polluters who create them. So there's an increasing sensitivity to trying to minimize the waste stream and minimize the impact on the environment, and therefore minimize the impact on business.
I agree with Mr. Opper. Just adding to that, I would say we also, by reducing waste, we are actually conserving our natural resources for further use and for better use. And the liability can be reduced in some cases by recycling the waste and recovery of important materials and minerals from the waste for better use in the future.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It seems that today's presentation will be quite instructive. Let us begin with Module 1, in which Dr. Chalam will discuss the current status of our planet where waste management is concerned, and some of the cleanup technologies available to organizations and households to minimize their production of waste.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. We want the world to be beautiful, lovely to look at, congenial and serene, with flowers all around us, reminding us of all the lovely things we have access into this world. Clean water that flows from mountain tops, virtually right into our living rooms, and the freedom to travel all over the world and to set up communities virtually everywhere. Life could be different for us here on earth. As we all know, what man proposes, God disposes. But sometimes we do not have to propose, but we can live with and protect what we already have. But industrial development and the economic advances that accompany it is also very important to us. It provides the comfort that we need to live a quality life so that the benefits of our industry and the economy can be truly realized. But when we do not take into the account the health of the environment in which that economy and industrialization develops, we have a problem. To industrialize the world is not wrong, but we have to consider another question. Is it fair to all living beings? When human disasters strike, they can be devastating. When human disasters strike, they are enormous. As in the case of the Exxon Valdez oil tanker, when 13 million gallons were spilled in the pristine areas of Alaska, we did not think much of it until we realized the enormous impact that it had on the living conditions of the people, the industry, the economy, and the wildlife. We found beaches completely covered in oil. Eagles did not return to their nests. Otters died while swimming. Bears that came to eat the dead seals on the beaches died while eating the contaminated flesh. The deer, the elk, and the moose that were able to come and eat the kelp on the shores also died from the oil content of the kelp. The disaster continued to spread, and we could not control. We saw whales bleaching themselves and dying. As chief toxicologist in a team of 400, I was asked, what are you going to do? Lots of dedicated people got together. We tried to save as much as we could. We tried to save the wildlife and clean up the shores with only minimal success. We left dejected, telling ourselves that only nature could take care of such a disaster. And then we pondered over the question how we could have created this problem. It really didn't matter. The important thing was to prevent similar events from taking place in the future. That may be the first step to the conservation of our precious planet. Though we had access to important technologies that we were at that time considered effective in many ways, they were only as effective as a razor blade would be to a doctor trying to perform surgery in a battlefield while under fire. Here, it was nature telling us, learn, people, learn. We all know nature's fury, the disasters it can cause, the earthquakes, the volcanic eruptions, the floods, the tidal waves. At least now, we are learning how to cope, understand, in cases of emergency, evacuate. What if one of these disasters, such as a flood, is accompanied by a human-made disaster like a chemical spill, a tank explosion, or the like? Such a case may be, for example, the washing away by a flood of a chemical factory, which would lead to contamination by slime, sludge, toxic metals, and organic chemicals. As you see here, the entire area has been devastated. Where trees are dying, the living creatures that lived in this environment have gone. And when the floods are gone and the land dries up, nothing returns, even in the spring. Such areas are devastated, non-recoverable perhaps, for hundreds and hundreds of years. Aren't we getting used to these signs all over the world? Danger, hazardous area, keep out, infectious waste, keep out. Why are these things happening? Is it because we still do not know how to handle our waste? Or do we need more examples of death and destruction before we learn? Is tragedy going to be the ultimate price that all of us have to pay before we realize that the environment can and should be taken care of, and that innovative technologies can be utilized in harmony with nature? When will we realize that we can conserve natural resources and yet prosper on this earth with a high level of economic benefits and comforts, I think we should wake up to the reality that not all of us are living comfortably and safely, and that it is the conservation of the earth that we now inhibit. Waste can take many forms. There is solid waste, such as garbage, liquid waste, such as sewage, gaseous waste, such as air pollution, and thermal waste, where it be in liquid or in gaseous form, such as that discharged by factories. Hazardous waste are of primary concern. Hazardous waste is classified as such because of its quantity or concentration or its physical, chemical, or infectious characteristics cause potential hazard where improperly treated, stored, transported, or disposed of. Hazardous waste can have the following characteristics: ignitability, corrosivity, reactivity, or toxicity. These are terms commonly used. However, you can find more detail on each of these qualities in the appendix of your participant manual. Pollution of our environment is a primary concern. Pollution is the releasing of waste into our environment by improper handling, usage, storage, transportation, and or disposal. Pollution can take the form of air pollution, water pollution, and soil contamination by a hazardous waste. When exhaust from vehicle factories or heavy equipment is not controlled, the air that we breathe becomes contaminated with unhealthy levels of carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and nitrous oxide. Such pollution can now be very easily controlled and eliminated with modern filtering systems. Most water pollution occurs when toxic effluents from industry are discharged into lakes, rivers, and the ocean. Pollution of the Earth's water tables is becoming common due to the leaching of chemicals from toxic waste and municipal dump sites. Soil contamination is usually the result of chemical spills and deterioration of chemical containers at storage sites. Land masses are also being contaminated by the illegal dumping of chemicals. Industry, agricultural, commercial, and even residential chemical waste is contributing to soil and water pollution at alarming rates. Voluntary initiatives to reduce, treat, and recycle contaminants is the trend today because we still don't have internationally recognized laws and registrations. Most companies still do not follow the regulations set forth or circumvent the stipulated laws. The new International Standards Organization, Standards 14,000, is expected to curb these activities. As my colleague, Mr. Opper, will explain in his presentation, we will be seeing increased regulation in this area. In the meantime, there are 6 priorities in the management of any type of waste as outlined in this model, which can be found in your participant manual. The steps include to eliminate generation of waste, to reduce generation of waste, to recycle, to reuse, and to recover waste, to treat waste, and to dispose of waste in a proper manner. Let's look at this step by step. A company could eliminate generation of a certain waste product by completely eliminating it from the production process. An example of this could be substitute the ozone depleting fluorocarbons with other harmless organic chemicals. The next step, waste reduction in a manufacturing setting, means that less raw materials are used in production, whether it be through product design or process improvements. In a service organization, such as a university. An example could be reducing the number of paper forms used to store or distribute information by making this information available on a computer system. For example, at this university, San Diego State, an enormous amount of paper was saved by automating some of the steps involved in the registration process of its approximately 30,000 students. Whereas in the past, students filled out and turned in forms to requests, add or drop their classes. They now could do so over the telephone using an automated computer system. The need to mail out grade listings to each student was also eliminated by putting all of this information on the same phone-accessible system. Recycling is the next step in the process. In recent years, there has been a push in the United States and at some levels worldwide to implement recycling programs in order to reduce waste at both residential and business levels. In the United States, many public and private entities have found it both ethically correct and monetarily rewarding to encourage and facilitate recycling in their communities. Many communities offer curbside recycling where recyclable items are separated by household members into labeled bins provided either city-funded or private recycling companies, which come by and unload the containers, which each household leaves on the curb into partitioned trucks which deliver the materials to recycling centers for further sorting. Each household pays a small monthly fee to cover part of cost of the service. The funds generated by selling the recyclable materials are used, in the case of city entities, to pay for the services provided. And in the case of private industries, such as a profit-making venture, the recycling centers sell the sorted materials to national industries for use in the manufacture of other products. For example, old tires are often used to make carpet. Oftentimes, recyclable materials are shipped overseas to countries which lack the natural resource base to manufacture products from virgin materials. For example, San Diego-based recycling companies ship many tons of used office paper to Japan for use in the manufacture of paper for that country. Recycling centers are also open to the public to serve the needs of those individuals who don't have access to curbside program or who wish to sell their recyclable materials directly to the centers rather than to donate them in the curbside effort. Where businesses are concerned, similar efforts have been implemented. The organization in question subscribes to a recycling service company which usually provides the organization with bins in which to sort and temporarily store waste materials. Then at the regularly scheduled time, perhaps daily or weekly, depending on the organization needs, the waste items will be removed. Not only are there companies which specialize in the recycling of rather innocuous waste, such as office paper and beverage containers. There are many organizations which specialize in the removal and recycling of harmful waste. An example would be companies that specialize in the repurification of dry cleaning fluids and paint thinners for reuse. This brings us to the fourth priority of waste management: reuse and recovery. Among household residences, reuse goes hand in hand with recycling and reduction. In fact, a popular motto used to educate the general public in the United States to the ways they can support recycling is reduce, reuse, and recycle. Reuse and recovery involves collection items for reuse in the original form or for reuse as a raw material for the remanufacture of the same item all for the manufacture of completely different items, such as mentioned earlier. An example would be the many beverage companies throughout the world that package fresh product in cleaned and sterilized recycled containers which have been recovered through various means of collection. Another would be a manufacturing company which reuses water used in the manufacturing process for use in cooling its machinery. The next step, treatment, applies mainly in the management of hazardous waste. This step involves, as in the dry cleaning fluid example, if cleansing, filtration, purification, or detoxification of a waste product for either a reuse or for use in a different process. I will mention an example of water treatment later in my presentation. The last step in the waste management priority model is residual disposal. This involves compacting the residual waste, neutralizing the residual waste, or claiming or reclaiming usable materials from the residual waste. An example of this would be residual waste where useful metals present in it can be reclaimed, or another example can be where mercury can be reclaimed from gold ore processing. The waste management priorities should be implemented in this order in order to minimize the waste produced at each step in the production process. In order for an organization to be successful in reducing its waste, each step in its waste management system should be analyzed. The waste management model, which can be found in the appendix of your participant manual, shows many of the areas in which waste management choices should be analyzed. This includes material procurement, materials utilization, waste accumulation, on-site waste management, and off-site waste management. Waste reduction is not only to the benefit of our environment, but to our businesses as well. It saves companies great amounts of money that can be used for other purposes. For example, the money saved by using less or by recycling raw materials could be used on efforts to improve product quality